Okay, you all, we're back. I fixed the problem. So we should be able to see it on all social media. All right, thank you for that. Okay, so we're going to continue and say more most common vocabulary words on YouTube Agent Prep and Facebook Agent Prep. Okay, and this is vocabulary to help you prepare for your real estate exam. And this is for any state, all 50 states. This vocabulary will help for all states, not just Texas, but for all 50 states. Okay, so we left off with appreciation. Okay, so now we're at assessed value. So the valuation placed on property by a public tax assessor for purposes of taxation. Okay, so when you get your tax statement, your property tax statement from the county assessor's office, it's going to have an assessed value. In some counties, they'll have the assessed value and they'll have the market value. The market value is right now in this market is usually higher. In a falling market, in a down market, the property value might be lower and the assessed value may be higher. But at this point in age in 2022, the assessed value will be a little bit lower than the actual real market value. So I use it as a way to determine, to use different numbers to determine what price range I want to recommend to my sellers when we're listing a property. Okay. So many say, oh, ignore the assessed value. Well, no. And the reason why some say that is because individuals can protest their property value and it'll bring down the assessed value. And so now we don't really know what it was. It could all of a sudden be lower than the prior year. And that's because individuals protested the value. So property taxes keep going up and up and up and up, right? They want more money. And so if the owners did not improve the property, did not upgrade it, did not remodel it, and there are newer homes in the community or others that got remodeled, the assessor's office has a tendency to increase everybody's home. So it's our job to go in there, take the comps and show them, hey, look, I haven't done anything to my house. Here are my pictures, inside, outside. It has, this types of problems in it. And then the assessor will look at it, evaluate it while you're there with them. It usually takes for an individual to get a comparable from a realtor and go to protest their taxes. So that's why some say ignore the assessed value. I like to look at it and I create a trend. I look at multiple properties and see where they're all at. The assessed value compared to the property value that it's sold at, or currently listed or pending. Okay, I do a lot of numbers and comparisons to make sure give the right recommendation. So the assessed value is what the county assessor's office, a public taxes office, determines what taxes to charge an individual, a homeowner, every year. When an individual is in Texas, we have the homestead law. So the homestead law is that they will not be foreclosed on by creditors, okay? Like credit cards or department store credit cards and things like that. Our homestead, our primary home is protected. And except for property taxes, they can still foreclose on the property, okay? So then there'll be a reduction when a person is a homestead, there's a reduction on the assessed value. So that reduces their taxes. When we become 65 or older, they automatically also reduce our tax fee, okay? So the assessed value can stay fixed for some time because we're now at 65 or older, and that is put in place by the government, okay? So assessment. The placing of a value on property for the purpose of taxation. So the assessor does the assessment and comes up with an assessed value. And they do it by comparing all the properties that are around that home that are similar. And who does that? The assessor, right? The public official who establishes the value of a property for the taxation purposes. So you have the assessed value, the assessment, okay, and the assessor. So the assessor did the research, came up with an assessment, the placing of a value on that property, and then reported the actual assessed value on the taxation document. Okay, an asset. So an asset is items of value owned by an individual, assets that can be quickly converted into cash or considered liquid assets. So these include bank accounts, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and now a lot of people are investing in NFTs, cryptocurrency, Bitcoins, lots of different things. Some people are making a lot of money. That becomes a major asset, and they can use that to also purchase real estate. So other assets include real estate, personal property, and debts owed to an individual by others. So that's why we have what? Insurance on our home investment, on our real estate, because it is a major asset. It's one of the largest assets that we'll ever have unless we own a business and that has a greater value. So we have property insurance, homeowners insurance, business insurance, and then personal property. A lot of individuals could have very expensive jewelry, okay? And if they get stolen, they want to have that protected. So they get personal property insurance, and then of course, other debts owed and such. Now, assignment. So when an ownership of mortgage is transferred from one company or one individual to another, it is called an assignment. So I'll give you also an example. When a buyer is purchasing a contract, let's say they're a wholesaler, investor, a wholesale buyer, they will write a contract to tie it up, okay? And then will find a buyer, or they maybe already knew a buyer. So they negotiate it with the seller, put under contract. So the contract belongs to them. It's between them, the investor, the wholesaler, and the owner. And then they bring a buyer that ends up deciding to buy it. So on the contract, they'll do an amendment, says on the contract, it'll say Joe Smith and or assigned to. So then the and or assigned to will be the buyer that they bring. That buyer will pay that wholesaler, that investor, a fee. It could be $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, depending on what they agree. So the contract between the seller and the wholesaler, and then the wholesaler assigning it to the buyer, all happens simultaneously at the closing title company, escrow company. It all happens simultaneously. The investor never owns it. They assign the contract that tied up the property. They transfer the ownership of that contract to somebody else, or it can be assigned to an LLC, okay, and or a corporation, okay, a sub S or sub C. So that is an assignment. It's not necessarily just a mortgage, okay? It can be a contract. So here, when ownership of your mortgage is transferred from one company to another. So mortgages will tell you, oh, by the way, we may sell your mortgage. So now they're selling it, they're assigning it to another mortgage company. Assumable mortgage. Assumable. Now, it's not like we assume, right? We know what that makes us. Well, no. So it is an assumable mortgages. VA loans can be assumed. However, the lender still has to approve the buyer that is going to assume the mortgage. So it's a mortgage that can be assumed by the buyer when a home is sold. So let's say there's a VA owner and they're like, they're in poor health, they've got to sell it. However, their deed of trust specifies that that loan can be assumed by another VA person, a VA buyer, okay, Veteran Administration. So that new VA person, individual, will be first approved by VA to get a certificate of ability to purchase. and then they go with the lender on that loan. So it's not refinancing. It's just they're doing their own approval. The same loan exists, same payments, everything will exist, and they transfer it over to the new VA buyer. Okay, but it doesn't happen automatically. They have to be approved. So usually the borrower must qualify in order to assume the loan. Sometimes there may be some FHA loans or other types of loans that may have the wording, the clauses in the deed of trust. An assumption, the term applied when that buyer assumes the seller's mortgage. Okay? An assumable mortgage, it's the loan, the deed of trust, and the buyer is assuming. So they do the assumption. Lender, seller, lender, right? And it goes to the new buyer that they become the assumer, the assumption. Okay, they assume the same mortgage. It didn't get reworked. It's not a new mortgage. It's the same mortgage that existed. I have bought property from individuals that were about to lose their property. And yes, I took over their loan. That is different. That is called taking a loan subject to the existing financing. And so the borrower, I take over the property and put it under a trust. And so there's a whole slew of documentation that is required. And some lenders will actually approve it. Others, no, it gets conveyed to a trust, and therefore it can continue on. That's another major topic, okay, about assumption. Taking loans subject to the existing financing, and then it becomes an all-inclusive trust deed. So anyway, talking about things that you don't need to know right now. Maybe later if you decide to invest. Okay, hold on, I did something screwy here. All right, balloon mortgage. So think of a balloon, you blow it, blow it, blow it, blow it, blow it, blow it, and it gets big, right? At some point it's gonna burst. And so then that balloon mortgage, it's a mortgage loan that requires the remaining principal balance be paid a specific point in time. So the balloon blew up and now it's got to be paid off before it pops. So for example, a loan may be amortized as if it were to be paid over a 30-year period, but requires that at the end of the 10th year, the entire remaining balance must be paid. It's almost like an ARM, but this one, it's not an amortized rate mortgage, okay? It is a balloon mortgage. It has to be paid off at the end of the specified term. In this case, they're saying at the end of 10 years. So they're paying their loan principal and interest, like if it was going to be a 30-year loan or a 15-year loan, with the requirement that it'll be paid off in 10 years. Where the amortized rate mortgage, that one, the rate can change. Okay, they have an option to continue on and take a risk with the rate increasing. This one has to be paid off. So that's why it's a balloon mortgage. Okay. And okay. So the balloon payment, that is the final lump sum that's going to be paid at the end of 10 years or end of 5 years or whatever. So investors may do this, okay? The final lump sum payment that is due at the termination of a balloon payment. Okay, now bankruptcy. Hope you never have to deal with that. So a bankruptcy is when somebody went defaulted on credit cards, on mortgages, car loans, anything, and they can't They want to protect themselves from losing everything. They want to reorganize their debt. Then they can go for a bankruptcy court and reorganize their loan. So there's different types of bankruptcy, chapter 7 and chapter 11. So a filing in federal bankruptcy court by an individual or individuals can restructure or relieve themselves of debts and liabilities. Bankruptcies are of various types, but the most common for an individual seems to be chapter 7, no asset. Bankruptcy which relieves the borrower of most types of debts, credit cards, department store cards, and such. A borrower cannot usually qualify for a paper loan. That means they can't qualify for good credit to purchase a home for a period of 2 years after the bankruptcy has been discharged and requires the reestablishment of an ability to repay debt. So after 2 years of the bankruptcy, then they may reapply if they've been working at rebuilding their credit and be able to qualify to purchase a home, a car, get credit cards. Chapter 11 is more for businesses. And in some of those bankruptcies, they will take away your car and force a sale on the home. Now, if there's a foreclosure in process, when an individual files bankruptcy, it stops the foreclosure. It goes on a hold mode until the bankruptcy court attorneys work up the reorganization, restructure of that person's debt. They may end up wiping out all their debt, but again, it also ruins their credit. And they may end up losing, their car or other assets that they have. If they have a home, that home will have to be sold, okay, unless the bankruptcy court releases it and it continues to go through the foreclosure. But in other points, if there's good enough value on that home, it can be sold, then the bankruptcy court will assign it to get sold. Bill of sale, a written document that transfers title to personal property. So bill of sale are used for personal property, not for real property, for residences, okay, or commercial property or land. So bill of sale is for personal property, right? Your motorcycles, that's personal property, right? Your cars, personal property. Your furniture, other assets, personal property. Anything that is land with an improvement on it, okay, is real property. So for example, when selling an automobile to acquire funds which will be used as a source of down payment or for closing costs, the lender will usually require the bill of sale in addition to other items to help document this source of funds. So lenders want to know, where did the money come from? How did you get it? How did you save it in such a short time? And people say, well, hey, I sold this, I sold that. Okay, show me the proof. Not only show me the money, but show me the proof, okay, of how you sold it. Okay, because if it is a corrupt transaction, then it is an invalid transaction, right? It is voided. It's not valid because it's drug money or other crime money, or they robbed a bank, right? And came up all that like in the cowboy days, right? All right, so bill of sale, personal property. Okay, hello, Lillie. I was able to connect and maybe we can be relatives. This last name belongs to my dad too. Yes, it's my dad's last name, says he. Okay, biweekly mortgage. A mortgage in which, okay, so first of all, what is biweekly? When you work for a company, you get biweekly payments, right? You're getting a payment every 2 weeks, right? You get 2 biweekly payments every month. So a mortgage in which you make payments every 2 weeks, by 2, right? By 2, instead of once a month. The basic result is that instead of making 12 monthly payments during the year, you make 13, right? Because there are 52 weeks in a year. And so 12 months sometimes calculates to 48 weeks. So by making it every 2 weeks, okay, you're making 26 payments instead of 12. Okay, so 26 payments times 2 is 52 weeks. Okay, so the extra payment reduces the principal substantially, reducing the time it takes to pay off a 30-year mortgage. So you're making one extra payment every year. Sometimes they do charge a fee to do that. I was going to say weekly, that biweekly mortgage. So no, there are independent companies that encourage you to set a biweekly payment schedules with them on your 30-year mortgage. They charge a setup fee and a transfer fee for every payment. So it depends on how much they're charging if it's going to be a profitable decision to make. Okay, is it going to save money, or the extra fees that I'm going to pay is actually going to get up to what I might be saving? So it has to be calculated in the long term. Your funds are deposited into a trust account, right? An account that is not their business account. It is a trust. Like all title companies and real estate brokers in the past used to have a trust account to put rent deposits, monthly payments, or the earnest money or the option fee goes into that trust account. Once there's an executed contract, then that trust account would be sent to the title company. Now, most of the earnest money typically goes directly to the title company, escrow company. So they charge a transfer fee and a setup fee. Your funds are deposited into that trust from which your monthly payment is then made. And the excess funds then remain in the trust account until enough has accrued to make the additional payment, which will then be paid to reduce your principal. So you could save money by doing the same thing yourself. Plus you have to have faith that once you transfer that money to them, that they will actually transfer your funds to your lenders. Okay. Remember, there's a lot of corruption out there, a lot of hacking, a lot of dishonest individuals, and many do it with an intent, with malice. So we always have to be careful with that and research and do it ourselves. If we can make it a bill pay on our checking account, goes out every 2 weeks, we have control, right? Instead of once a month. So a bond market usually refers to the daily buying and selling of 30-year treasury bonds. Lenders follow this market intensely because as the yields of bonds go up and down, fixed rate mortgages do approximately the same thing. The same factors that affect the treasury bond market, okay, also affect mortgage rates at the same time. That is why rates change daily. And in a volatile market, can and do change during the day as well. Okay. And so individuals invest in treasury bonds, in bond markets. When my brother was in the military back in 1968, he would purchase some bonds, and you hold them for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and their value increases. Okay, what time is it? All right. I'm looking at the clock because I have a 7 p.m. training, okay, on social media, which includes YouTube. Okay, a bridge loan, and that's through my coach. A bridge loan. Okay, so what does a bridge do? A bridge lets you go over a creek, lets you go over a bridge, lets you go over a highway or an expressway. It connects two different ends, right? And so instead of going through the traffic, we go over the bridge, right? So a broker has several meanings in different situations. Most realtors are agents who work under a broker. We don't work for them. Our license hangs at a broker's office. Some agents are brokers as well, either working for themselves or under another broker. In the mortgage industry, broker usually refers to a company or individual that does not lend the money for the loans themselves, but brokers loans to larger lenders or investors. So a mortgage broker versus a bank. So a bank, you're tied into whatever loans they have available. A mortgage broker, okay, deals with many different banks that will loan the money and will find the best type of loan for the buyer. So they are on commission. So like us, we can work with lots of different buyers, lots of different sellers, and each one, the sellers, right, is paying the brokerage a fee, but we get paid through our broker, right? So see the home loan library that discusses the different types of lenders. As a normal definition, a broker is anyone who acts as an agent, bringing two parties together for any type of transaction and earns a fee for doing so. So in some states, a realtor is actually called a broker. And the broker that we call here a broker is called a principal broker. So they don't use the word agent like we do here in Texas. That's when I was in Oregon. So I used to be a principal broker. I was a broker as an agent, but then I became a principal broker like a broker. Okay. All right. Buy down. What are you going to buy down? Usually refers to a fixed rate mortgage where the interest rate is bought down for a temporary period, usually 1 to 3 years. After the time and for the remainder of the term, the borrower's payment is calculated at the note rate. So in order to buy down the initial rate for the temporary payment, a lump sum is paid and held in an account used to supplement the borrower's monthly payment. These funds usually come from the seller or some other source as a financial incentive to induce someone to buy their property if for some reason a seller can't easily sell it on the market, which is not the case right now. Although when they're overpriced or they're not up to par or in good shape or in good locations, then the seller may have to resort to doing something like this or sell it on owner finance. They can accomplish this because a lender funded buy down is when the lender pays the initial lump sum. They can accomplish this because the note rate on the loan after the buy down adjustment will be higher than the current market rate. Okay, so they can accomplish this. So a lender funded buy down. They can accomplish this because the note rate, that's the promissory note that is part of the mortgage or the deed of trust and does not get recorded. Promissory notes are not recorded. So the note rate on the loan, the deed of trust, after the buy down adjustments. So that will be higher than the current market rate. One reason for doing this is because the borrower may get to qualify at the start rate and can qualify for a higher loan payment. Another reason is that a borrower may expect his earnings to go up substantially in the near future, but wants a lower payment right now. So when that happens, if they cannot pay the full principal plus interest now, any overage of interest or principal that is not paid because of their buy down of their lower or smaller payment until they get a better job, better income, it is added to the end of the loan. So now we end up paying interest on interest and original principal. So the principal grows instead of getting smaller until they're able to get to the original rate, the original interest rate. So they bought down the interest rate so that they have a lower interest rate right now to pay lower payments, but any overage that they can't cover the payments now will be added to the loan. Okay, we're going to end at the end of the B's today. So at the next session, we will start with some C's. I've got a mastermind call coming up. So I hope this was of value to you. Remember, these vocabulary apply to anybody in the United States, all 50 states. And it is critical, it's crucial, it's very important that you learn the vocabulary. Don't memorize it, understand it. Okay. And it'll help. It's our language of real estate. Understand it so that it'll help you understand the questions and the answers, because a lot of times, a lot of the answers have different categories. Hi, Tiffany. Good morning. Oh, no, sorry. Never mind. That's on a different video. And so you've got to learn the vocabulary, the language of real estate in order to understand the questions and answer correctly when they're using a lot of vocabulary. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Remember to tap that subscribe button, click that little bell. You get notified every time I go live, and like this video if you learned something from it. Until next time, catch you later.